It's the Pikey Loughz Show, Talking Taipans. With Chris Pike and Alex Loughton come to you with everything that is 100% Taipans. Let's go. It's Talkin Taipans.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Pikey Loughz Show. We're talking Taipans, and the NBL Cup is behind us. Might not have been what the Cairns Taipans were hoping for, but they got through it, got through the 4 weeks in Melbourne, and as a reward, they get to head over to Perth this week to take on the Wildcats. So we'll discuss all of that on this week's Talkin Taipans. I'm Chris Pike, one half of the Pikey Loughz Show. The other half, one of the all-time greats of the Cairns Taipans, Alex Loughton. How do we find you this week?
Mate, doing very well. Thank you very much. Bit relieved to see the end of the NBL Cup. As exciting as it was, so many highlights, like some pretty impressive athleticism. A lot of people getting dunked on. I'd say maybe a lot of frustration from the players coming out, and they just really excelled in terms of basketball. But obviously, yeah, with that done now, we looked ahead to these next sort of 20-odd games, and gee, what can we reassemble from, I guess, the carnage of the first half of the season? It hasn't gone as expected, but at some point you've got to turn the page and pick up the pieces and see what we can salvage.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio, less pain, more life, and Statton's Plumbing Company, plumbers who care.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, from a Taipans perspective, they were 2-6 heading into the NBL Cup, and then they went 2-6 at the NBL Cup. So coming out of it, we're now sitting at a 4-12 record, which doesn't look great, but in a season that's now going to go 36 matches, still got 20 games to go, Loughz. Do you see signs that there's still hope there? If you're Mike Kelly right now, do you start to plan for the future, or do you still try to salvage something from this season and still try to be shooting for finals this season?
Well, I think in terms of this season, I think the chances of finals are pretty slim. So with that in mind, you've got to take stock of who's on like 2-year contracts. What are you building for the future? And we just had this discussion just off air coming into it. With Mojave King as such a young buck with so much potential and upside, do you play him into confidence now and take the hits? I mean, he has been growing in confidence. Obviously, with the season kind of not going the way that, the club has sort of hoped, is it now a bit more of a rebuilding phase, as you mentioned? I think it is. I mean, if there's still a chance at, getting on a tear and cracking top, 4 type of thing, but I just feel like that there's just a piece missing in this team if they're really going to make it push deep into the playoffs. And, right now it just seems like it's probably better to spend that time building up the confidence of these guys that are going to be around for a couple of years for sure, and get those chemistries rolling and get the individual sort of players humming along, and then they might be in a better spot maybe to add an additional piece if they're still rolling with 2 imports, the league, but at least then they sort of have a bit of a plan in that regard.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. And Mojave King, he seems to be the hottest talking point surrounding the Taipans, and there's been a lot of people, probably especially Homicide Williams, that's been calling for him to just play him no matter what, just play him. But as we've talked about here, you couldn't play him the way he was playing in the first probably 6 or 7 weeks because he hadn't earned the minutes. I mean, he'd been on the court and he had been a little bit timid. He wasn't shooting well. He had turned the ball over a little bit, so he hadn't earned the minutes. So I had no problem with him not getting the extra minutes, but the last 2 or 3 weeks he's been playing much better, and I think he's earned some extra minutes. So I'm more than happy for him to probably even, if he doesn't start, to be playing starters minutes moving forward, because I think he's now earned it. And just one of the games last weekend, the game against New Zealand, he played 20 minutes, he had 12 points, but the plus minus is what stood out to me. Just about everyone on the Taipans team was in minus, but when Mojave was on the floor, the Taipans were plus 17, so he must be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, athletically he's so gifted, and he was able to get to the stripe, 5 for 5 from the stripe. So he was just being aggressive. And you said that, he didn't earn his minutes. We weren't saying for our listeners' sake, we weren't saying he hasn't earned the minutes coming into the game. He won't get those minutes. It's when he was on the floor, he wasn't being aggressive and taking those opportunities. So as a coach looking at that, if someone's not being aggressive, you've got to pull them from the floor because you're trying to get the most aggressive, mindsets coming into the game. And he just wasn't in that mindset at that time. In the preseason, he was. His confidence took a bit of a dive, and then coming into the season, it was just a bit low, and just wasn't able to produce and find that groove. I think he's settled into the league now. I think he's settled into what he can do. We saw that awesome dunk coming down the lane, elevates off two, and throws it down with the right hand. He just that's the top of the square. His hand and the ball were at the top of the square.
Yeah.
And commentators were just going nuts, which was just really impressive. Like he's got the tools in place more so than other players are going to have. Like he's gifted athlete. He is a gifted athlete. So now it's just connecting the dots, I guess, mentally for him. But now, does he play a lot more? I think absolutely. I think he needs to play more, and that'll just build his confidence up for every game.
Absolutely. Let's have a chat about those last two NBL Cup games for the Taipans in Melbourne. And it started Wednesday night against the New Zealand Breakers. Now, we spoke on last week's show and we thought that this was a real chance of a win, especially with the personnel problems at the Breakers. They didn't have Corey Webster in this game. Lamar Patterson was still missing. Rob Lowe was still missing. And as the game turned out, they really only played 6 players. But they got a lot out of those 6 players. They were 19 points up during the third quarter. So it was pretty poor, to be honest, by the Taipans to be in that position. But they responded. They gave themselves a chance. Some massive shots late. That Mirko Jeric 3 from, I think it was the menu log sign that's at least 4 metres out from the 3-point line.
It was definitely from the car park. It was from the car park.
Absolutely. So that drew them level. They had all the momentum, but then they give up an offensive rebound after a good last possession. And Tom Abercrombie, that 3 was incredible. Sometimes you just have to tip your hat to a shot like that, but you probably don't let them get an offensive rebound in an ideal world.
Well, I mean, look, that was a tough, play because, I mean, Oliver got a hand to it, right? So you're sort of expecting a bit of a tap out somehow, like it's just something that was falling in place, and Jeric sort of thought, is it coming out, as only a couple feet away, so his momentum's moving forward, thinking there'll be a bit of a tap down from Oliver. It ends up being a big tap heading way over his head. Abercrombie just he was sort of standing just around, and then all of a sudden he saw the ball and just took a sprint for it. This is still heading out deep NBA 3, but to be able to catch, turn, and fade away 3 ball, that's absolutely heartbreaking. And only a couple of days before, I happened to flick over my feed and see on this day back in 2015, the Taipans had go down to a Hail Mary from New Zealand in the grand final. I was just like, I didn't need to see this.
That's right.
I didn't need to see that.
The Beckway one, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then I was like, that's it. I turned my phone off, and then I even threw it out the window. But anyway, then a few days later, then this game happens, and I was just like,
and even if we go back to 2011, he was grand final MVP of that first grand final he got to as well.
Yeah, Tom. So I mean, for him to hit that shot, it was just it's such a heartbreak because I mean, the Taipans have just taken hits on the chin all sort of season. And it almost sums up the season a bit, doesn't it? I think it's just like, oh my goodness, like what is this? They only played their 6 players. They would have battled pretty well to be able to get the win like that. It's pretty impressive. But without Corey Webster, I thought, for sure, this is really good chance at a W. Yeah. But yeah, it's just. I mean,
the fight back was nice, but against a team that was so down on manpower, how do you end up 19 points down?
It shouldn't have been that way. It shouldn't have been that way anyway. Like it's just it's almost unacceptable, I guess, in terms of you've got to be able to make hay when the sun shines, and without those players for New Zealand, you'd certainly be licking at your chops. So Look, I mean, Thomas Abercrombie just got going early, and he's certainly, gave the Taipans guys a bit of a bath there with obviously Nguyen and King guarding him. A veteran guy's going to see that the chips are down with their, lack of players that they had to go to. So, he really put it on his shoulders to get them going early. I mean, you're right. The fight back was great, and it's what they need, especially led by Oliver, as you say. And it was just good to see that part of it. And still, we waited with bated breath right onto the end. That was a massive sequence, though, wasn't it? That with the Jerick 3, you thought the game was going to be heading into overtime for sure. And then
that was a really good defensive possession. They forced Ty Webster into a really tough shot.
Yeah,
did all the right things.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then it's gut-wrenching, isn't it? Should we move on to the next game?
Yeah, Friday night, and then as we forecast last week, it was Ryan Brokoff's debut for the South East Melbourne Phoenix. They still weren't quite at full strength, so they didn't have Kiefer Sykes back yet. Dane Pino didn't play, Adam Gibson didn't play, but they did get Brokoff back, and you kind of sensed that something was brewing when the very first possession that he stepped onto the floor, he knocked down a 3. He didn't do a lot, though. He didn't play a huge amount of minutes. But Mitch Creek did. Mitch Creek was really tough to stop, and I guess he was the danger man going into it. From a Cairns point of view, they didn't really have somebody to be able to stop him. Machado really stepped up. Oliver stepped up, and they kept fighting. But again, it just takes so much energy when you're coming back from another 15-point deficit. It's really tough to keep that momentum going when you just have to put so much energy into just fighting back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought Glidden was really active throughout the game, and he was shooting at a pretty good clip. Mitch Creek shooting at a pretty good clip, the 3 of 5 from 3. And just being aggressive, putting his head down. But yeah, Glidden still putting in 14 points.
Glidden was fantastic at both ends. His defense is really underrated, isn't it?
Yeah, and he's really. I thought he's been shy, especially at the start of his time at Melbourne, South East Melbourne Phoenix. But I think he's kind of starting to really, get a hold of his position and sort of assert himself defensively. And they look pretty good. I mean, Brokoff, I thought he would be a bit dusty, blowing off the cobwebs coming in. But obviously, when you connect on that first 3, you kind of go, "Oh no, here we go."
Yeah.
But look, for the Taipans, I just thought that you could see that the losses have started to wear down on them a bit, but they're still sort of holding to towards that goal of just trying to get some W's on the board and get some mojo back. But it was sort of great to see Mojave King still grow in his confidence.
Yep.
And Oliver Machado obviously leading from the front as well. But they just missing that stud player, aren't they? That hole that DJ Newbill, left behind. He could put 20, 27, 29 points in a game and really turn it.
He also hit the shots when they were at the most important times as well. He would hit the shot under the most pressure too.
Yeah, and just the ability. So is it just one missing puzzle piece, do you think, for this team, or is it with a couple of injuries? Do you think that the Taipans have needed to get someone in to replace the injured players, just to fill in that, or is it the missing puzzle piece? Are they missing an Australian stud, a Boomers player that can really complement Oliver and Machado in Newbill's absence?
Well, potentially. Majuk Deng, I don't think we can underestimate how much he's being missed, because he really was the third best player behind Oliver and Machado. He was in career best form when he went down injured. I mean, anytime you take out 11 points and 5 rebounds out of your team, it's tough to replace, and he's your starting 4-man. And he's one of those guys that plays with great confidence. He loves to shoot the ball, but we've also seen him have the ability to put it on the floor and to finish at the rack. He was the one that probably...
It's averaging 11.5. So he's had some games at 16, 18. So he can turn the game. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you're capable of... I don't care how you get it done. If it's Deng that's gone off for 18 that gets the job done, then he's capable of doing that. They just need that contributor that can go off like that consistently. But yeah, for sure, Deng certainly missed.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he was the one that was going to be capable of stepping up to replace a lot of what DJ was providing already. But everyone lost an import, so I mean, we can't just... I know how important DJ was, but there comes to a point where we just can't keep, I guess, blaming that on this season. So we always knew that one of those players would have to go, and if you think about it, if there was no Cam Oliver or no Scott Machado, it would be a pretty massive hole as well. So it was always going to be a big hole, losing one of the three. So I think Majuk Deng was the one that was going to step up the most, and he was stepping up. So you take him out, and all of a sudden, I guess Court Noy steps into that third role, and he had that one big game, and I think it was against Melbourne, but he hasn't quite been able to find it consistently, and suddenly everyone has to go up in the pecking order. So suddenly there's a lot more pressure on Mirko Jeric as well, and all of a sudden Fab Krislovic, rather than playing the backup role, is now the starting role. He's doing a great job, but there's a lot more pressure on him. Suddenly Mojave King steps on, and I guess the team is looking at him to almost be the saviour rather than just being sort of another piece to the puzzle. So, I mean, there's no easy answer, but when a lot of other teams seem to be able to bring in an injury replacement, I don't know who the person would have been, but is that something the Taipans should have done, or they might have considered when Majuk went down and it just didn't work out, or was it up to players within the squad to step up? How do you see that, Loughz?
Well, it depends who's available. And, even the Wildcats bringing in Tom Jervis, he was a player that was available. Is a Alex Pledger around that's available? Is there someone that's hasn't played? And I'm not talking about myself at all. I'm saying, is there someone that's recently retired?
Was Alex Loughton available? That's
no. It's not even. It's not even a joke. But but it depends on who's available and what's actually at their disposal, financially to bring him in. Would that guy have had to quarantine anyway? There's a whole bunch of factors that come in. I'm guessing with the NBL Cup, it would have been pretty hard to fly someone in. They would have had to quarantine. It just would have been not possible. But, I do agree with you. You probably want to be replacing and having someone come in that can give you a hand, just someone that can, chip in and give you options. Yeah, it would have been ideal, but like I said, it would have been pretty hard to actually execute to make it happen.
Do we know an update on Majuk? Do we know how much longer he might be out for?
I know he's just been with the team. I would have assumed he might have flown home just to start rehab and do all that sort of stuff, but I thought it was a 6-week time frame. Obviously, he would be rehabbing down there with all the equipment under a watchful eye at Cairns Total Physio, Tom Lowcock on the scene. But otherwise he could have flown home and gone to the clinics here. But I believe it was the 6-week.
So we're probably at about the 4-week mark now, aren't we?
And he's still travelling with the team, I guess, to Perth and all that. So it seems like he was still going to be with them for these last few weeks and keep cheering the guys on and hopefully being positive around the locker room and that kind of thing.
Okay, Loughz, why don't we take this chance to update our Cairns Total Physio MVP tracker now up until the end of the NBL Cup. So
I'm actually enjoying this. I've been enjoying this tracker for Cairns Total Physio. Just kind of keeps
absolutely. I think it's a very, very good addition that we've added this year. Now, the New Zealand game. Now, thanks to our friends there at Cairns Total Physio who have provided these votes, Mojave King with the 3, Mirko Jeric the 2, Cam Oliver the 1.
Yep, I think it's great. King coming up with the goods and, certainly a huge contribution. So, I'm happy with that.
And then against the Phoenix, Scott Machado the 3, Cam Oliver the 2, and Fab Krislovic. Nice to see him getting the recognition. He got the 1 vote. Yeah,
absolutely, and he's been really boosting the guys effort-wise and coming up in those votes as well. I know, like a lot of these players, it's going to be a 2-horse race between Oliver and Machado, but it's good to see which of the other players are really stepping up. So we're getting a good picture of who's been able to contribute in a lot of these games.
Yeah, we are. So on that leaderboard, thanks to Cairns Total Physio, you got Cam Oliver 26 votes, Scott Machado 24. Next up, Mirko Jeric on 9, Court Noy on 8, Fab Krislovic on 8, and then we've got Mojave Kings now on 5, Majuk Deng on 5, Nate Jarwai is on 4, and Jared Kenny's on 3. So it's a real chance for like you said, if you get some form going, you can be like Mojave King and all of a sudden rise up that leaderboard pretty quickly.
Absolutely, and Jeric at the 3rd spot. That's interesting. So he's been he's been able to contribute some really big moments already in the season.
Now, what did you think about the NBL Cup overall, Loughz? It felt like it was a pretty long month, but maybe that's just because I was working and wasn't able to enjoy it quite as much as a fan. In the end, the Perth Wildcats just keep winning. They had their win sewn up by that last day, and then they finished off with a 26-point comeback against Adelaide to cap it off. So Perth wins it. South East Melbourne ends up finishing second. Brisbane Bullets finished third. What did you make of the whole thing?
Well, I thought it was going to make and break a lot of teams, and I think it did. I mean, Bullets really shone through that sort of phase there. They really found their groove, and I thought they ended up looking pretty good, which sort of surprised. In the way that Hodgson hasn't been playing, or the way he has been playing sort of lately, he really, I thought he was more going into his shell these last couple of seasons, and I thought, oh no, he must be, I wonder if he's done, because players are coming up around him and, going off to the NBA and all that kind of stuff. But he's kind of really lifted a lot for the Bullets, and South East Melbourne, the Phoenix have been a bit of a surprise sort of packet to finish, in that second spot.
Yeah.
I think for the Wildcats, Cotton's just an assassin. He's just unstoppable, really. Like the way he's got so much turn when he makes a move. He gets so much separation and still gets his shot off and just finishes at such a high clip. He's such a difference maker and probably worth every penny of his 3-year contract.
Yeah.
So it's almost a bit boring, isn't it? Like the Wildcats just keep winning, and it'll be. I'm sure you're happy on the Perth podcast that you do. That it's all smooth sailing for your team over there in Perth, but certainly for everyone else watching, even Cal Bruton commentating, he's like, well, back in the day, you used to not know who would win the grand final. Like it was so hotly contested. Now it's basically vanilla. It's always the same sort of couple of teams at the top. But look, I think for the NBL Cup, it was pretty long. I missed a lot of games because it just happened so every other day, right? Every second day there was games. So it's really hard as a fan that works a full-time job to be able to keep track of it all. It's really just those that have the time on their hands that can soak it all up and watch every game. So I don't know. I don't know financially. It probably was a great thing for the league to have Victoria government give them all that money and host the game. So I'm sure that's mainly the main objective in just making something viable for the season, because everything else is so up in the air. I don't know if COVID-wise it was a necessity to have something. I mean, you could play a lot of games in Brisbane, Cairns, Perth, it wasn't so much a COVID sort of lockdown quarantine thing, although there's always a risk of each of those states sort of closing borders and things. So, I don't know what the actual wash-up is. I think for the actual basketball highlights that we saw coming out of it was pretty impressive. There's some pretty good contests, and I think the level of play, it almost elevated a bit because, the teams were just playing. So the games got, quite tactical, and the games, were fast and aggressive, and there was no time to rest on your laurels. So teams were coming at you, and there was no time to rest because you're playing the next team in a couple of days. So look, maybe basketball's the winner out of this. Like the level of play was good to watch. Yeah, I think the fatigue on the players is pretty high though.
I think by this last week, everyone you spoke to was just crying for it to finish. Yeah,
they were cooks. Yeah, so maybe 2 weeks too long.
Possibly, I think so. But that was just the environment we were in when they set it up. There was, like you said, there was always the chance of a COVID outbreak somewhere. So this was almost the security blanket, But still plenty more games to come for the home, for the home fans. Yeah. We've still got seven home games to go for the Taipans, so plenty to look forward to still. And there's been plenty happening across the league since the NBL Cup this week too. We might not have had any games, Loughz, but plenty for us to dissect. And I want to pick your brains about some of that shortly. But before we do, why don't we have a listen to what Mike Kelly and Cam Oliver had to say after the last game of the NBL Cup for the Taipans, and then we can offer our thoughts on that, and then we can have a look forward to moving on from the NBL Cup as well.
Quite a good fight back again. But again, that first quarter let you down or into the second term. What was it behind that slow start? Was that more a slow start, or was that more Phoenix shutting things down?
Well, I think the first big difference between our last game and this game was we came out with great energy and intent, and they made some shots and we made some bad plays. We tried to go through bodies that were vertical. We tried to go through bodies that were standing in front of us. So we made some mistakes, but the energy was really good in that first quarter from our group. And the energy went in the wrong direction at times, so we were down 6. But I was encouraged that how we were playing, or what we were, the intent with which we were playing.
Obviously, no loss is good, but does that seeing the guys come out with that energy, with that intent, and the way they played in that second half, does that make it a little bit easier to take?
Not really. I think, I expect great energy from the guys, and when it's not there from each of them, it's a huge disappointment. So we're playing to win games, and the energy shouldn't even be a thought. So I expect that energy from them. I'm happy when it's there, but energy comes first, and then you got to play good basketball as well. And for a big portion of the night, we didn't play great basketball. We just played really hard, and that kept us in it.
Just in terms of where the season is at now, do you still believe that this team can overcome the hurdle and make the finals, or is it becoming too far?
Well, I think we can win our next game. I thought coming in that we had a good shot at winning this game, and right now that's got to be the focus. Us playing with that great energy, but executing and playing good basketball as a group, and continuing to get better as the season goes on. And I know anything could happen then. You start winning games, the belief is there, the confidence is there, and things fall your way, and you get a little streak going. But it's, I'm silly enough to think that that stuff's going to start happening this week coming up.
Just on some of the performances, the man next to you had another pretty good night out. Scotty had another good night out. What do you make of their contributions tonight and the way that they led the team? Well,
I thought the energy that they brought was great. I thought there was some things, these two are leaders on our team, and for them to combine for 12 turnovers we won't win like that. So the energy is great. It's same because we go how Cam goes, we go how Scott goes, and when they play with great energy, their skills are amazing, and then they need to play great basketball as well and take care of the ball and talk on defense and rebound the ball like Cam does. And when we're doing that as a group with these two leading, we'll get wins.
Cam, you came under fire from some parts of the media in the last few weeks for there was suggestion that you didn't show enough care on defence. You've come out in the last 2 games with a bit more energy and really trying to. Is that something that's played on your mind and fed your motivation?
Yeah, I would think so. I had reached out to the team as well during that time period and told them of my lack of effort and lack of defense, and it's not going unnoticeable, and I actually talked to Coach about it as well, and just told him that I'm fighting my own personal battles. I was actually battling with the kind of sort of a flu symptoms during that time, so I had to kind of get over that as well, but I still trusted myself, and the team believed in me to come out there to give full effort, and that's what I should do every single time I go out there. But everybody trusts me and believes in me to do that, and I just got to turn it around. It's the point of being a professional basketball player. You got to be consistent every single day, and that's what I got to provide.
Okay, that was Cam Oliver to finish with, and Mike Kelly before that after the game against the South East Melbourne Phoenix to close the NBL Cup for the Cairns Taipans. Thanks to the NBL for making that available. A couple of things that stood out to me. Let's start with Cam Oliver first, Loughz. Were you surprised by his response there at the end and the troubles he's been going through and how personally he has been taking, I guess, some of the things that have been happening?
Well, look, I mean, we've all got personal troubles and things, and we've got to sort of, as best we can, check them at the door. I know he's obviously missing his family, and they've just announced on the socials they've got a third kid coming soon, and I think missing a family would be a huge factor in a lot of just mentally going, oh man, this is all just possibly too much. But he's a professional and still handles his business as best as he can. Obviously, with a bit of flu, is going to amplify that sort of ability to be mentally strong through all that. So look, he knows he's professional. He knows he's got the backing of his team, and he knows that he had to lift from some of the habits that were creeping in and tackle that lazy nomenclature that was sort of going around about his defense. So he's pulled up his socks a bit. I think the big thing for that game that Coach Kelly was talking about, I mean, the team went for 21 turnovers, and when we look at what needs to happen consistently, that 11 to 13 sort of turnover range is 13 is the absolute maximum number of turnovers you can allow if you think you're going to get wins. So for that 21 turnovers in that South East Melbourne Phoenix game, certainly way over the amount that's gonna get it done. And
like Mike said, 12 of them were just between Machado and Oliver.
Yeah. So trying to find each other, trying to get things done, and just being a bit sloppy with it. You got to really tighten that in. And if things aren't working, you've got to kind of pull back and go, hang on, we've got to sharpen up here. Like let's try something else rather than just trying to force the same looks and not coming up with sharp enough play. So look, Mike Kelly's imploring his team to try and check as many boxes as possible, and they're trying, like they are trying, and but he certainly is demanding a lot from his from his leaders, and rightly so. You've got to demand a lot from your leaders because they're capable of delivering. So if they're falling short, he can call it how it is, and they'll take that criticism, and then they'll try and be better next time. So in a season with very few wins, every little thing amplifies as the problem. Oh, it was this, it was that. It's everything is a bit cumulative, unfortunately. So when you're winning, it masks a lot of stuff. It can mask poor sloppy play. Oh yeah, but we won by a few points. All that stuff can be masked, but when you're losing, everything is under the microscope. So we won't get caught up in too much about one little stat, but certainly for Oliver, just fronting the media like that, I think he's pretty honest. I think he was pretty good with how he spoke, and he knows he's got more in the tank, and hopefully can deliver his consistency like his teammates are demanding.
The question he was asked was sort of based around some of comments from outside sources. Now, when you're a player in the middle of your career and you get asked about, do you care what critics are saying, the answer is always no. But now that you've finished your career, did you ever take notice of that, or did you just focus on what was said inside the bubble and what you were hearing from your coaches and teammates, or did some of that other outside stuff sneak in sometimes?
Outside, no. Inside your own circle, yeah. Heck yeah. Like if coaches are saying, look, I mean, if teammates say it, heck yeah. If coaches are saying it, it's less so. But if your teammate is saying you need to work harder, you go, okay, bloody hell, like I better put on my socks. If your coaches say, look, you need to work harder, you kind of go, is that motivational sort of? Yep. What's your angle? Like what's that kind of thing? And you still have a lot of respect for who's delivering it if it's from the coaches, of course. But it just means so much more if your teammates are saying, hey mate, like you're letting us down here. Like I need you to move. I need you to be there for me. Like I need you to be in help rotation. And I need you to know that I need to know that you've got my back. That kind of thing. So if you're not delivering the energy, the effort areas, it's because it's not a skill, right? It's the effort areas. If you're not delivering effort, then the teammates have every right to demand more of you. as a player. And that's the one that you respect. That's the one that you go, yep, I'm with you. I'm in this. We're all in this. Let's do it. If someone on the outside is commentating and has an opinion, then it's like, whatever. Like, they have no credibility. They have no credibility with me. Does that answer?
No, that answers it perfectly. As promised before, we heard from Mike and Cam. It's been a pretty busy few days across the league since the NBL Cup finished. Let me just run through the list of some of the events, and you can give your thoughts on whatever you feel like giving your thoughts on, Loughz. So, towards the end, we saw Ryan Broekhoff make his debut for the Phoenix, as we talked about. We saw Brandon Paul.
Big for the league. I'll just say 2 words. Big for the league. 3 words.
Absolutely. Then Brandon Paul made his debut for the Adelaide 36ers and put up 25 points, and he was impressive. And now since we've seen the Breakers release Lamar Patterson, and they've signed a new import, Levi Randolph, and they've also signed Jeremy Kendall straight off being released by the 36ers to replace Corey Webster while he's injured. And now we've seen the Bullets sign Lamar Patterson straight away. And they've released Orlando Johnson. A lot to dissect there, but also some unfortunate news it's bad news for the South East Melbourne Phoenix. It's bad news in a lot of ways that it looks like Mitch Creek won't be available probably for the rest of the season, given the legal troubles he's found himself into, which he was just about in MVP form. So that's going to be tough. So they get the positive news with Broekhoff back, but they lose Creek at the same time.
Yeah. It's a big blow for Phoenix, and we'll take a wide berth of the actual details of this situation, because obviously it's going to play out in the courts. But certainly for the Phoenix, a massive blow to their chemistry, their makeup, and they'll have to find a way to adjust. And who knows how long it could be out for. I think the league's going to have to look at this and figure out what their stance is as well, and then we'll wait and see what comes of this.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to go into the details, but I would be amazed if he's allowed to play again until the actual court case is finished. So that's all we, I guess, need to say about that. What's your quick thoughts on Lamar Patterson? We saw the one good game he played for the Breakers was when he led them to a win against the Taipans, but now he's probably landed back where he feels a lot more comfortable with the Bullets. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it looks like, Orlando Johnson was just sort of a placeholder, I guess. I thought he had some good moments, but obviously a cheaper import. But they always wanted Patterson. Is that what your thoughts were?
I believe so. I think they wanted him to come back, and the only reason he went to the Breakers was because the Breakers offered him a better deal.
Yeah. Well, he just doesn't come in shape. Like, the commentators speak of it too, and like he says that he plays himself into shape. Well, you're losing games early because you're not in shape, and what the teams need you to be serviceable order coming in so that you can get a good start. And
let's be honest, you become more injury prone if you're not in shape too.
Well, some players are able to throw their weight around, and he's one of them. He can actually move with some weight on, and he's been doing it his whole career. But at some point, actual fat is just dead weight. And you can also have heavy muscle, which is dead weight. If it's not explosive muscle, then it can also be dead weight. So you've got to find your optimal sort of playing sort of weight and all that kind of stuff. And it's not the way he's come in. So New Zealand would have been frustrated with that. But he's an absolute gun with the rock and can do some pretty amazing things. And obviously had a great season with the Bullets last year. So they were more than happy to get him up there and say, hey mate, just do what you did last year, and let's move a little bit further into the promised land. But at the same time, you've got Sobey who's having a career, his year, and does this mess up his looks? Because Patterson will absorb a lot of those looks, a lot of those shots, and
Vic Law as well has probably taken a very similar role to what Patterson had been playing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it could be some in-house sort of, fighting for who's going to close the game. Who do you put the ball in the hands of, So they're going to have to balance that old situation out. But we'll see how that sort of unravels. Obviously, Sobey's their leading scorer, and 24 a game, and Vic Law's 19. Hodgson's next in there with 10. So I mean, maybe they're looking for. If they lay it down with Patterson and say, hey, look, mate, we just need you to give us, 14 to 16 a game. We're going through Sobey and Law and let him know that way. Then you can say, right, well, coaches, coach has, this is what we're rolling with. This is the direction. If coach doesn't say anything and just sort of lets it play out, which sometimes, Coach Lamanis has been criticised of doing that before, just bringing players in and let's see what unfolds, that can be detrimental because then players are going, well, where do I fit in? What am I doing?
Yep.
And, if there's not direction there, if there's not strong direction, it can fall into a big pile of poo. So it can be a big old, soup, a big bowl of soup if you're not careful. So, that's an interesting one. I think they're in a pretty good groove, but they're just trying to, upgrade from Johnson's skill set.
Yeah, so we'll watch how that unfolds.
This episode of the Pikey Loughz Show is proudly brought to you by Cairns Total Physio. Less pain, more life. And Statton's Plumbing Company. Plumbers who care.
We're here to talk about the Taipans, and it doesn't get any easier out of the NBL Cup, Loughz. So the first game back is this Friday night over in Perth against the Wildcats, who are coming off winning the NBL Cup, and it's their first home game in, I think it's 5 or 6 weeks, so they're going to be pretty pumped up to put on a show. It's going to take some doing from the Taipans to spoil their party.
Well, they've done it before. They have done it before, but they're also coming off some pretty impressive performances. Even though last year it was coming off a loss to the Hawks, you could tell that they were playing some really good basketball.
Yep.
And going into that Perth game, they surprised Perth. This time around, they're coming off 2 games that perhaps should have been going the other way. Coach Kelly spoke about the energy and the effort. He's saying sometimes it's clicking, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the energy was there, but the actual quality of hoops wasn't quite tasty enough for him. So I'd like to say they're going to go in there with a wet sail, coming off some really good games, but we know they're going to have to switch gears and maybe getting out of Dodge, getting out of the Cup might be enough for them to sort of reset. So we're hoping that they can put 4 good quarters together and really at least try and get the Wildcats napping a bit, thinking that they've got it all nice and easy. Hopefully the Taipans can really put their best foot forward here.
We know even if they get a big lead in the first half, don't do what Adelaide did and don't go to sleep at half time, because you need to put this Perth team away if you're going to beat them. Now, what has to go right? I don't think it's as simple as saying stop Bryce Cotton and you can beat them, because I don't know if you can stop him. So you have to try to just make life really tough for him. So who from the Taipans can make sure that Bryce has a really tough night?
Well, look, I mean...
Or is it a team effort?
Well, of course, it's the team effort has to be there. But I mean, even Jordan Artai's been guarding. He guarded Cotton the first time around. And to be honest, I mean, this is 6'4". He's like a bigger dude. He's not like Cotton's quite light and really springy, elastic. But I thought Artai wore him pretty well. Did you think he worried him out of a couple of shots in that first Perth game?
Yeah, I agree. I think the best defenders that have done a decent job on Cotton are those ones with a bit more length. I think Cam Glidden's got a pretty good history of doing it as well. So yeah, I absolutely think I would be giving the job to Nartai, because I think Bryce, I mean, he's not tall. We know he's got that spring in his legs, but he does sometimes get a bit put off by that longer defender. And I think Nartai's got, well, no one's got the exact quickness to go with him, but he moves his feet pretty well. I think he can stay in front of him. So, yeah, I'd be absolutely giving the job to Nartai.
Well, you start off with Machado on him, and then you got Kenny to, just rotate in. But then when you need to throw a different look at him, for sure, I think Nartai's coming straight in. And, you can afford to give up some fouls. You can afford to get in his grill a bit. Just give him something different. I mean, I do think he's still going to get his numbers, so you do have to do a job on everyone else. And that's where those effort areas come in, the box outs, the taking care of the little things. And that's where Cam Oliver can't go to sleep and be, quote-unquote, lazy on defense, because they're the ones that his teammates, they're trying to hold down Cotton, but taking care of everything else. That's the part that this team's going to have to hang their hat on to get this win in Perth.
Yeah, on a week like this where you have two road games, do you put your complete focus on this game in Perth first, or do you have half a mind to the game against Sydney on Sunday? Or as a player, first of all, how do you approach it?
Well, it's funny, in college, the the coaches would actually, let's say there was a double header on Friday and Sunday, let's say, and let's say we had training on during the week. Well, on Monday, we'd hit up a tiny bit for the Sunday game, and we'd say, right, here's one of the looks for the Sunday game. Just put it in your back pocket, and we drill, what the other team was running and that kind of thing. And then so that was Monday, and then on the Tuesday and Wednesday would be heavy focus for the Friday game. So we'd actually, in the week leading up, we hit up a little bit of the second game, and then closer to the Friday game, we would really focus in and lock in and really hammer that out in a sort of kind of second in terms of the week, but it's closer to the game. In NBL, they haven't done that I've seen. In the NBL, it's just been focus on the next game. So all your effort and energy just locking into just trying to get that one win. So two different schools of thought. One is you cover both games, the other you don't. I think for players, you just want to focus on one thing, and maybe any good marketer would know that the one message is better than mixed multiple messages. Yeah. So maybe college, they were trying to do too much. I reckon as a player, it's best just to focus on the game that's next ahead, and that way you completely block out all this other stuff and can come into it. Players could forget which game that defensive strategy applied to. You just kind of, all these things come into it, and you're dealing with basketball players here, so you've got to keep things very simple and straightforward. So I reckon just the one game focus is key.
So when you're thinking about the game against the Kings on Sunday in Sydney, how much of the way you view that game will depend on how they perform on Friday in Perth?
So what are you trying to say? Like, will they play well or because of how they played in Perth? Or what
I mean, is it hard to look ahead to how you think they'll go against Sydney without knowing how they play against Perth first?
Well, I think with this year's team, yes, because there's so many different factors come into it, and it's been an up and down, mentally draining season for them. So it'd be good to see them finish the Perth game with a spring in the step, and then you kind of go, okay, well, they're on the move. But at the same time, they've pulled out a few surprise wins as well. Even the Sydney game before, they really took it to them and got the W. So you kind of go, well, maybe that comes into it. They've had, a good showing against Sydney, so they're going to have that fresh.
2 of the 4 wins already have come against Sydney.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, first game of the season. Was that first game of the season? Did I get that right?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So I mean that you think, all right, Sydney. Okay, I've actually got a good feeling about this one. Like I've got good memories of the games gone prior. So yeah, that can it can make you just have that quick sort of flick of the switch kind of mental thinking that can put you in the right spot. I mean, should be able to do that every game, right? Just flick the switch and all of a sudden you're in a good frame of mind. But it really comes from those repeated behaviours or the behaviours that have been successful. And sometimes the win's the best one to go off, and it can really fuel your performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got those 2 games to look forward to. In Perth on Friday, in Sydney on Sunday. And then the following Sunday, back home in Cairns against the Adelaide 36ers. So we've got that to look forward to, Loughz. But it's been another big show, plenty to get through. There just seems to be never-ending topics for us to get through each and every week. So I hope everybody is enjoying listening to what we're giving you here on the Pikey and Loughz Show. I'm Chris Pike, and I'll sign off for another week and leave you with the great man himself, old Loughz.
Well, Thanks for this. It's always a tough one, but what you want to focus on now is the individual players that are progressing. And for me, Fab Krislovic really has filled some big shoes and starting and really putting up some good numbers. And he's starting to feel in the groove. I think Mojave King's starting to settle into what he can really be, and that's the exciting future for the club, especially for next year. So those are you're looking for little wins, and if the whole team collectively it's not quite getting the job done, I think there's still plenty of great basketball action. Well, of what we can see from the players that are individually progressing, because that's going to put the team in good stead for certainly for next year. But you want to see improvements and always moving forward.